Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. We're keeping on with our month of alignment with self. And this week, our focus, it can kind of sound heavy, but we're going to make it as light as we possibly can. Our subject for this week, as we mentioned yesterday, is guilt.
I was feeling excited to come to the podcasting
I'm
studio
excited
today.
about guilt.
And I thought, why am I excited to go and share about guilt? You're right. It can feel heavy. It is something that we need to talk about, especially for all of us who've been listening and noticing, becoming aligned. Guilt can sometimes get in the way.
That's right. And especially when we've listened and we've noticed guilt thoughts pop into our heads, we can then try to silence our listening and our noticing. Oh, I don't want to think about that. I just feel bad. I don't want to think about those times I've been out of alignment with myself and took actions that caused harm, or I did something that didn't line up with my own values. Oh, I don't want to think about that. I'll just go back to work. I'll numb myself with something. So with guilt, we want to be brave. We want to put on those brave hats, join together with courage, and look at guilt, because the thing about guilt, it does keep us out of alignment with ourselves. If we allow it, that is. And to start us off, you know us, we're going to have a working definition for this, and we have a working definition for guilt.
We have two definitions of guilt. One for what we're calling healthy guilt, and another definition for false guilt.
Thank you for making that distinction. We are going to look at both. Healthy guilt is the emotional signal that we believe we have violated our own values or caused harm. I'll say that again. Healthy guilt is the emotional signal that we believe we have violated our own values or caused harm.
What's important about healthy guilt, to start distinguishing between healthy guilt and false guilt, we'll share the definition of false guilt in a little bit. Healthy guilt isn't like this vague sense of shame. If you're an Enneagram Type 2, or you have some Enneagram Type 2 in you, not saying that other types can't, but this sense of shame can become very overwhelming. Brené Brown describes it as a shame storm. A shame storm isn't, I did something bad. A shame storm and shame is all around, I am bad. So with healthy guilt, we're not going to this place where I am bad. That's not what it is. It's specific to some action that we've taken that doesn't match who we want to be. By specific, we have a clear target. I snapped at my daughter. I lied at the meeting. I didn't follow through on what I had promised. I was dismissive when he was vulnerable. Those are all actions and scenarios that we can point to. It's not vague. It names the behavior, it identifies a moment, and it doesn't attack all of who we are. It limits it to this specific action at this specific time. It doesn't go to, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I ruin everything. It doesn't go to any of that. Healthy guilt has a clear target.
Now that we have touched on healthy guilt, let's bring false guilt into the equation and take a closer look at that. Because as we talk about guilt as a whole, we want to differentiate. Am I coming from a place of healthy guilt? I can recognize I didn't show up how I wanted to show up, but then there can also be false guilt. And here's our working definition for that. False guilt is the emotional discomfort we feel when we violate someone else's expectations, even though we have not violated our own values. False guilt is the emotional discomfort we feel when we violate someone else's expectations, even though we have not violated our own values.
Now think about the difference. False guilt, it's vague, or you could say it's exaggerated or global. It's not, I lied at the meeting. It's, I am a bad person. Typically, false guilt will be triggered by someone else's disappointment. We're getting some reaction outside of us, and then we take it inside of us, and we start thinking that we're bad. This is the important part, though. False guilt, especially when we're learning to be aligned with what's true for us, will show up when we're starting to set limits, when we're starting to set boundaries, when we're starting to listen and notice that we've been codependent. That's why we're going to look very closely at codependency next month. That's just 2 weeks away from now, and I'm really excited about that. False guilt appears when we start to set limits. We will apologize when we're in false guilt, but there's no resolution because inside of us, we're beating ourselves up. We're going into that shame storm. If you've been in a situation where you have apologized, but then you keep nagging on yourself and keep saying that you're bad, or I did something bad, I'm awful, that's false guilt.
You sound like you've had some practice.
Well, I, unfortunately, would abandon myself pretty much throughout my life. When I thought someone was disappointed in me, even though, like deep inside, I would think, I didn't like that and I knew why. And I would abandon my own values by not calling it out or not saying what was true. But I would abandon myself by apologizing when there was no need to apologize. I think it's important to accept and live our responsibility in our relationships. But when we over apologize and apologize when it's not called for, that's where that self-abandonment comes in. And to me, that just adds insult to injury. Not only are we getting into this situation where we're apologizing, nothing gets fixed. It's actually not a true apology, but we're making ourselves low so that somebody else will think we're okay. Or we're making ourselves low so someone else isn't angry with us. We all make mistakes, but if we keep beating up on ourselves and allow other people to keep reminding us of our mistakes, we're abandoning ourselves. And false guilt will keep us stuck in that position.
Absolutely, and we're probably taking responsibility for someone else's stuff when we're feeling false guilt.
Many times we are because it's tied to an identity that we've created inside of us. Like, I'm bad, I'm selfish, I'm mean.
And where'd you get that idea? From someone else's expectations.
And then it becomes the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves. What false guilt does is it protects our belonging, but it does not protect our integrity.
And that's an important distinction.
So let's start there tomorrow.
But for today, let's have a reflection question as our intention. When is a time where I have experienced healthy guilt? And when is a time I have experienced false guilt? Let's come up with examples, one for each type of guilt. And we'll get back to all of this tomorrow, as Annette said. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.